It's important to remember that the primary day of mourning of the Jewish year is Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. And so that all the halachot that we are talking about come under the rubric or the heading in the Shulchan Aruch of Hilchot Tisha B'Av, the laws of Tisha B'Av. Already in the Mishnah, this notion of the day became expanded back to include Shavua, Shechol Bo Tisha B'Av, the week starting Sunday of Tisha B'Av. Then back even further to Rosh Chodesh, the first day of Av. And then back even further to Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. And that's why there is a discrepancy between the Mechaber, the Rav Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch, and the Psak of the Ramah. Whereas for the Mechaber, all of these prohibitions begin on Rosh Chodesh. For the Ramah, many of them begin also from Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. So the first thing is marriage. We know that Ashkenazim, those who follow the directives of Ramah, do not marry during the 3 weeks from Shiva Asar B'Tammuz until Tisha B'Av. And this is clearly stated in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mechaber says, Ein nosim nashim ve'ein osim su'udat erusin. We don't get married or perform marriages, nor do we create engagements during that time. That's what the Mechaber says. He distinguishes whether there's a su'udah, a festive meal, or not. But again, he's talking about the time from Rosh Chodesh. But the Ramah says, Noagim lahachmir, she'ein nosim yud zayin b'Tammuz ve'elach ad achar Tisha B'Av. The Ramah says, no, we don't perform marriages between the time of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. And here, the Mishnah Berurah points out that engagements, maybe you can. I mean, an engagement is an important thing. It ensures the eventual marriage of the Chatan and the Kala. And it may be that we could be a little more liberal about engagements, at least until Rosh Chodesh, until the beginning of the month of Av. And then he adds, Aval Sudat Erus Afilu Sudat Erusin Mutar Lasot. We said that when it comes to a wedding, the Suda is an indication, the festive meal is an indication of the joy of the moment. But he says with Erusin, the situation is not comparable, and we would be allowed to have a festive meal at the time of the Erusin. So the first thing is marriage. The second thing that we can talk about is music, right? Is music that one should refrain from music during this time, right? And this is not explicitly stated in the Shulchan Aruch, but it's in the Magen Avraham, and again, the Mishnah Berurah mentions it in several places. Mishnah Berurah, letter Tet Zayin 16, he says, Suda asur la'asot ba'ofen ze afilu belo rikudim u'mechulot. That you can't have a Suda in honor of a wedding, even if you refrain from having dancing and singing. In other words, clearly the Mishnah Berurah thinks that dancing, singing, music is forbidden, and this all goes back to the words of the Magen Avraham. There are certain the halacha has dealt with specific questions. What if I play music as my livelihood? What if I teach music? What if I have to practice? What if, all sorts of what ifs. So that generally the poskim have been more lenient when the question was a question of my livelihood, and more stringent when it was simply music for pleasure and enjoyment. From Rosh Chodesh, of course, it's important that everybody should refrain from playing music, practicing music, teaching music, etc. So the first two things that we know about in the 3 weeks, the prohibition of marriages during that time, and the general prohibition of listening to, performing, making music, getting music, and any permutation of the above.